Good morning. We are almost at noon and I will start sharing my screen soon. I just learned that some of the sites are not able to access YouTube, so I will be researching another option to deliver these meetings for future meetings. And I will also respond to everybody and make the slides available so that anyone that wasn't able to attend either live or the archived version will be able to participate that way. So I apologize for the rough start on that, but we will get this figured out and get this going and make sure it's something of value to everybody. All right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen so that we can get the presentation started. And real quick, before I get started going through the slides as it all kind of shakes out, make sure that as you view the webinar in YouTube, that you use that little toggle icon at the bottom of the little TV screen area of YouTube and click on that and press, I think it's display or output or something along those lines. I can't click on it now or I'll lose the whole display. And make sure that you choose, I think it's 720p or HD. One of those options will make sure that you can see the slideshow as it's intended and not fuzzy or garbled. All right, so this is the first webinar of 2017. And just as a reminder as well, if anyone has questions, if you are viewing this live or listening to it live, please send me a text message at 612-670-6793 if you do have a question, and I will answer it during the live session. So as we decide the webinar platform, perhaps moving to a GoToMeeting or similar type of service, future webinar dates are yet to be announced. So if there is feedback on preferred days of the week or time, I'm open to anyone's thoughts on that. Today's date and time was kind of picked arbitrarily to give people enough notice to attend and also for a non-Monday, non-Friday timeframe. So any feedback on presentation would be helpful. All right, so the goals for today's webinar, I want to make sure that you have a update on regulations and where OSHA's at, as well as a few other things. And I am getting some text messages, so I'm not sure if this is going out to anybody. I'm going to make sure I send the link to these people that are trying to get in here. And it looks like people aren't able to see it. So I'm gonna stop the screen share real quick and see if there's something I can do here. Okay, I'm seeing that there's more viewers signed on, so I think I have it figured out. I apologize. For some reason, it looks like the settings defaulted to private. So I went into my YouTube settings and made sure that I corrected that. So I do see that there's some more viewers on. I have been recording for a couple of minutes, so I will make sure to include a note in the YouTube link for anyone that's accessing the archive, that they can fast forward and begin the session after a few minutes. All right, so I'll get back to the screen share, and it's going to look really crazy for a second here until it catches up with itself. All right, so welcome again. Sorry for the hiccups there. This is the first webinar of 2017. I learned that there's a particular group of sites within the Beverage Association that isn't able to access YouTube Live. So I will be looking at other options for broadcasting these webinars for future webinars throughout the rest of this year. So if anyone has a suggestion similar to this where I can screen share the visuals and provide voiceover, that would be really helpful. What's nice about YouTube is that I can archive this and send the link for people to view in the future. So I do like this format when it is working, but however, I do realize that it might not be the best for some of your internet servers that block out certain sites. So future dates for future webinars are yet to be announced because we haven't quite figured out the schedule or topics. So I am open to suggestions on both. So if people have ideas for future topics, or if anyone has feedback on particular days of the week and times that work better for this type of session, I'm open to your feedback. So again, if throughout this session, if you have a question, there's no way to use the chat function when I'm sharing the entire screen. I haven't quite figured that part out yet. So if you do have a specific question or comment, please do text me. My phone number, which some of you have already used this morning, this afternoon, is 612-670-6793. So 612-670-6793. If you've got a question, I can answer it during the live session. All right, so the goals for today is basically to catch you up. We had intended to have a session in person. I understand that the association usually has an in-person meeting towards the end of the year during the holiday season, and we weren't able to make that happen this past year just due to many different factors. So much of this information that I'll present today is information that I had ready for you and have added to since late December, early January, especially after the inauguration, as I'm sure that first item here, regulatory update, is something of interest to everybody. We'll talk about some specific regulations that have impact on all of your operations and start to think about action planning for compliance. Another goal is just that you can continue to identify best practices that either you're already using and would like to share, or that you would like to implement in the coming year, and how I can support that through safety service planning. And we'll discuss that further later about how we can coordinate this year to make sure that that I can help you focus on your safety goals that you have for 2017 at your site. So first things first, let's start off with the regulatory update. Topics that we'll talk about, but just real quick, the visuals on the screen here are for Minnesota OSHA and also Minnesota OSHA consultation. So throughout the year, last year, I mentioned Minnesota OSHA consultation as a great option for many of your sites, where you could then earn voluntary protection program status with the state OSHA plan. And if that's something that interests you, let's definitely talk about that this year. For some sites, just depending on different dynamics and factors at play, it may be a 1 year or longer process. Minnesota OSHA consultation staff is always interested in working with new companies. So this is something that, if you're interested in it, I can give you a lot more information about how to start the process with the Minnesota OSHA consultation staff. So to start out, just to recap 2016, Minnesota OSHA's most frequently cited standards, still the top two are related to hazard communication and right to know training. In Minnesota, we have a state-specific rule about conducting employee right to know training as it relates to substances and chemicals and other things that require a safety data sheet, and that must be done once a year. That's something different than what federal OSHA requires, in which federal OSHA does not require an annual training on this topic. So usually it's a pretty easy citation for OSHA, Minnesota OSHA, to write when they're at many Minnesota-based employers that the annual right to know training is just not supported or backed up by training documentation. Machine guarding and lockout tagout, these are items that might apply to your sites, especially for conducting routine maintenance on vehicles and equipment. Respiratory protection, I haven't really seen come up at many of the sites, but there is some exposure there. Most of you have got that AWARE program pretty well dialed in. It's something that should be looked at least once a year, just to make sure that it still reflects what you're doing at the field level for safety. Electrical wiring continues to be one of the top 10 citations within Minnesota OSHA and also federal OSHA. And this is a discipline that should definitely involve professionals at your sites if you've got some electrical issues going on. Carbon monoxide monitoring and powered industrial trucks continue to be a top OSHA citation in Minnesota, because we've got some specific standards in Minnesota, which has come up at many of the sites in the association throughout the year, is that carbon monoxide monitoring. That when you're using gas-powered forklifts indoors, that frequent carbon monoxide monitoring must be done. And as many of you already do, your routine maintenance provider can provide this type of monitoring and sampling for you. And emergency eye wash and showers, I think this is one that goes along with hazard communication and right to know. And again, on most of your sites, you've got one or both of these set up, and it's a matter of the inspection on the proper time frame and keeping these maintained and stocked properly. A big topic that started to come up towards the end of last year in discussion with many of you is this electronic record keeping that OSHA is moving towards. So it does start in the 2017 submission year, which means that you're submitting in 2017 based on 2016's numbers. Now, before you get worried about this, please do know that OSHA has not caught up to where they need to be as far as getting their website dialed in for how to actually receive the electronic record keeping. So the record keeping rule has been promulgated and it's in effect. However, there's no mechanism for actually providing the electronic record keeping information. So this is kind of an information only slide and the few that follow this related to this topic, because as we know with the new administration, perhaps maybe the web capabilities may not catch up and may not be budgeted for. So again, keep this in mind, because again, it's on the books, it's promulgated, it's something that could definitely happen and that you should be aware of. However, there's no way to go online right now today and actually submit your 2016 OSHA log numbers. So just to explain, the electronic record keeping rule applies to employers with 250 or more employees that you've got to submit the 300A, which is your summary document, the one that you hang up in your facility. For employers that have less than 249 employees but more than 20 employees and are on OSHA's high hazard list, and this is a high hazard list that's specific to this electronic record keeping regulation, that those employers must submit a 300A as well. So for those of you who do not have 250 employees, which is many of you, the question is, do you need to submit? And the NAICS code for most of your sites, based on what you do at your businesses, has a prefix of 31 or 42, which are included on OSHA's list of the industries that are required to submit if you have less than 249 people. So if your NAICS code from that 31 or 42 prefix, please make sure to double check OSHA's list and compare your NAICS code to that list. And I've included a link. It's a link to a PDF file that is on OSHA's site where you can check your NAICS code against their list and know for sure if you need to submit your records electronically. And again, this is for 2016's OSHA logs that you would be submitting in 2017, this year. So the question, do I need to submit? The answer is yes, if you have more than 250 employees. And the way that this is figured out is that OSHA looks at you as a company on the establishment level, not the firm level. So to define that, an establishment is a single location. A firm, it could be made up of multiple establishments. So think about how many sites you're responsible for. Those are all considered establishments. So if the establishment has 250 plus employees, for sure you need to do electronic record keeping. If your establishment has less than 249 employees, but more than 20, and you're on that list per your NAICS code, then yes, you must do electronic record keeping. And employee counts are based on peak employment in a calendar year. So not average and not the lowest number, but the peak that you had in a particular year. So again, yes, you need to submit if you're on OSHA's NAICS code list and have 20 to 249 employees. Many of you might know your SIC code or just keywords about what the business does. And so here's a link on the screen where if you know your SIC code, or to find out your SIC code to then convert it to a NAICS code if you don't know it. And these codes, either SIC or NAICS or both, would be on your company's OSHA 300A summary. So that's the first place I would look. And if you don't have access to that, or that information is not filled in on your 300A, then you can use this link. So this is a screenshot from OSHA's site, their landing page, the osha.gov/recordkeeping. And so the question then, after we understand who's required to submit electronically, is how is this going to work? So the only guidance on OSHA's website currently is that they will provide a secure website that offers 3 options for submitting data. So the first option, probably the most onerous, would be to manually enter data into a web form that they've developed. The second option would be to upload an Excel sheet file, which may or may not correspond to the Excel sheets for the OSHA record keeping documents that we're familiar with, the 300 log, 300A summary, and the 301. It might be a different spreadsheet. I'm just not sure how they're going to go about this. Or the last option, third option, is if you're using an automated record keeping system, that something like J.J. Keller, if they're maintaining your OSHA 300 information, or some insurance brokers will give you access to these electronic record keeping systems that the electronic record keeping system would have an interface that goes directly to OSHA or talks to OSHA. So I would assume it doesn't transmit data in real time, but that there still would be an option if you're using one of these automated systems that you would have an option to click send to OSHA or something along those lines. So as I stated before, OSHA is not accepting electronic submissions at this time of your data. So as there's some updates coming about, this landing page, osha.gov/recordkeeping, will update with the proper information. I didn't include it in this presentation, but if any of you do not already receive OSHA's Quick Takes email, that's a really good service to sign up for. When you go to osha.gov, there should be a pop-up that occurs for you to include your email address. And I strongly suggest putting your email address in that pop-up to get the OSHA Quick Takes emails. Now, those emails come from OSHA at the federal level, but they also include information from the states. And that's where I always get my most up-to-date OSHA information, is from the Quick Takes. There was a Quick Take email, I think it came out yesterday, Monday, or maybe it was late last week, that had some quick information from OSHA, including some updated training materials, and there's always some new handout or quick card or other type of resource that OSHA is providing through that Quick Take email. They email about 2 times a month, maybe 3 if there's a lot going on, like when we had the new silica updates and when the record keeping standard was first coming out towards the last half of last year. So it's not a lot of spam. It's 1 to 2 emails a month, and it's always pretty informative and actionable type of information. All right, so speaking of new standards, OSHA promulgated the Walking Working Surfaces standard for general industry. And what happened with this is that at the federal level, they have harmonized a lot of the general industry fall protection standards so that they go along with existing construction and well, mostly construction standards. So it's a little easier to wade through and a little easier to understand. So I wanted to give you a brief overview of OSHA's Walking Working Surfaces, WWS, standard. So why a new standard? OSHA decided that there was a problem, that the biggest problem is that falls impact every industry, not just construction, and that the existing regulation was outdated. So the last time that the standard was updated is when George Harrison and Eric Clapton shared the stage and looked like this. So why now, or why last year? Whenever OSHA promulgates a new standard, there's always hundreds of pages of preamble and supporting information that goes along with the new standard. So I actually have read the entire preamble and standard. It's over 500 pages, might even be 600 some pages. And the main takeaways is that OSHA estimated that the new rule would prevent 29 fatalities and almost 6,000 lost workday injuries every year by updating and harmonizing the standard. They also wanted to give employers more flexibility in choosing fall protection systems. And how this came, or how this actually works, is that OSHA has actually defined fall protection systems so that people can make better decisions. So your typical fall arrest, fall restraint, positioning devices, and then also some other more specialized equipment like rope descent systems. And then we get into ladder safety devices as well. OSHA realized that since the late 70s, there were advances in technology, best practices that were being used by industry, including manufacturers, and also ANSI and ASSE consensus standards. The general industry rule now aligns with the construction fall protection and scaffold standards. So, however, the general industry rule still has a trigger height of 4 feet. whereas the construction trigger height for fall protection is 6 feet. So that hasn't changed, but nearly everything else has been harmonized to make the two standards work together. A little background and definitions are provided in the new standard. OSHA defines any walking working surface as any horizontal or vertical surface on or through which an employee walks, works, or gains access to a work area or workplace location. So anywhere that your feet can touch and get you from place to place, whether up or down or on the same level, is a walking working surface. And there are some exclusions and exemptions to the new rule, which I'll get into. OSHA defines fall protection as any equipment, device, or system that prevents a worker from falling from an elevation or mitigates the effect of such a fall. So these are the foundational terms in the new standard. I mentioned fixed ladders, that if you have fixed ladders at your facility, that there are phased requirements over the next 2 years and up to 20 years. So if you are replacing sections of any fixed ladders over 24 feet at your facility, or replacing the ladder completely with a new ladder, then the fixed ladder must have ladder safety device, which would mean that a worker would wear a harness and a lanyard and tie off to a cable device that's actually affixed to the fixed ladder, or PFAS, which is personal fall arrest system. So the difference between ladder safety or PFAS is that personal fall arrest system consists of a harness and lanyard and tying off overhead to a fixed anchor point. The ladder safety device, I guess the ladder, the cable that's running parallel or right along with the ladder, is considered the tie-off point. Again, within 20 years, all ladders, all fixed ladders over 24 feet in height must have ladder safety or personal fall arrest system. So the ladder safety devices, or using personal fall arrest by having an anchor point independent of the ladder, these are replacing the ladder cages and wells. So that's what OSHA set out to do, is to replace that system and hope to have greater safety by using ladder safety devices or personal fall arrest systems. The main differences in the new walking working surfaces standard as far as ladders do apply to the fixed ladders, but they also talk about portable ladders in the new standard. And if you read through the standard, which I suggest that you do, it's about, as far as the regulatory text, it's less than 20 pages. So for portable ladders, ladders that move, that you set up in different places throughout your shop, there's flexible performance-based language instead of having very detailed, specified information in the OSHA standard. And again, as you do read through the standard, especially as it relates to portable ladders, you'll find a lot of information that you probably have already taught your workers. Things like using 3 points of contact when you ascend or descend a ladder, making sure the ladder is secured, not using the ladder on an elevated area, so piling up a bunch of blocks to place the ladder on so you can get up higher. These types of things that are best practices, and also best practices that have been set forth by the ladder manufacturers themselves. So things that you see on the stickers of the ladders and other best practices related to the ladders. Worker training is also called out in the new standard. So workers that must use a personal fall arrest systems have to be trained by a qualified person. So think about your workers, if they used to use a fixed ladder that had a cage or a well, and now you've replaced a section of that ladder because it's over 24 feet, and now you have a ladder safety device or a personal fall arrest system that must be hooked up and used, the person's going to need some training so that they understand the use, limitations, inspection, storage, maintenance of that equipment. And OSHA specifying that that must be done by a qualified person. Some other strategies here that are outlined in the standard. And I'll just preface this by saying that some of the language in this walking working surfaces standard to me seems problematic. And this is one example. The new standard says, keep the work area clean, dry, and sanitary. Now, if you think about that and think about how you might explain that to workers, that clean and dry, okay, that makes sense, but sanitary, what does that mean? Heck, even dry or clean, what do those mean specifically as far as how an OSHA compliance officer would look at your workplace and how they would cite you on this particular part of the standard? I'm not suggesting you really put an attorney hat on, but think about it, how an attorney would really look at this from either side, from the employer side or from OSHA's side, how this could be argued. And adding to this, there's no enforcement explanation, and I'm saying this wrong. I can't remember what the document's actually called. I think it's called enforcement guidance. That's wrong. It'll come to me. But there's a publication that would be put forth by OSHA that tells their compliance officers how to approach a workplace and how they would be able to cite an employer on these particular standards. So in that enforcement guidance, there would be something about how to determine if a walking working surface is clean, dry, and sanitary. So I look forward to seeing what they come up with for that. And knowing that there's no enforcement guidance currently from the federal level, and that this is also a relatively new standard, the walking working surfaces standard was promulgated I think early January, or excuse me, it was November of 2016. So it's one of the, I guess, youngest regulations that we have on the books right now. And with a new administration rolling back directives and other things right now from the previous administration, excuse me, I do suspect that that sort of thing could happen with the most recent safety standards that were promulgated towards the end of last year. Some other strategies that are called out in the walking working surfaces standard is that each employee uses at least one hand to grab the ladder when climbing up and down it, and specifying that no employee should carry anything that could cause them to lose balance and fall while climbing up or down the ladder. So I put an example of a topped container here. This is something that a worker could use that would be independent of them, that could help them carry items up and down a ladder. There's also tool tethers and other things that can be worn by a worker where they can essentially haul things a lot easier up and down a ladder to keep their hands free to climb up and down the ladder. So this is the first time we're seeing that OSHA actually has specified that this sort of best practice should be done. And if you need assistance on products for that, I can definitely put you in touch with people that have some really innovative solutions going on right now. Back to the topic of training related to this standard. Computer-based training. I know many of you are using computer-based training for safety information. And as part of the new standard, that's okay. That people can sit in front of the computer and receive training as long as it's been developed and it's presented through a qualified person, not necessarily by a qualified person. The walking working surfaces update defines a qualified person as someone with a recognized degree, certificate, or professional standing, someone with extensive knowledge, training, and experience, and that they could demonstrate their ability to solve or resolve problems related to walking working surfaces. So kind of a broad definition. It does go beyond competent person. As we know, competent person is just someone that's designated by the employer, that has some knowledge, skills, and experience, and has the authority to stop the work. So the qualified person goes a step beyond that by requiring professional standing knowledge, training, and experience. Here's a visual of the timeline from publication through the last effective date for the walking working surfaces standard. And again, if we were to speculate about what standards may be repealed, this one with such a long break-in or time frame, it definitely could be something that could be repealed at the national level. It was published November 28th of last year. And so that is the date that we use to measure all the future effective dates by. So the initial effective date for the standard was January 17th of this year. The worker training pieces of the standard are in effect by my birthday of this year, May 17th. 1 year after the publication date is when the RDS there, that's for rope descent systems, which I don't think any of you would have at your site. That's something that if you had a large building and had window washers using a rope descent system and scaffold, and you provided the tie-off point, that you would have to inspect and certify these permanent anchors. The next effective dates are next year. So fall arrest or ladder safety systems on new fixed ladders that are over 24 feet, or if you've got a section of a ladder that's going to be replaced, that the overall ladder is over 24 feet, that you've got to have a ladder safety device or fall arrest system. And that last phase-in date is going all the way out to 2036, in which cages and wells must be replaced with ladder safety or personal fall arrest systems. All right, so some best practices that are related to, oops, excuse me. There we go. This should be showing you the full screen again. I clicked something I shouldn't have. Best practices. So earlier I mentioned that OSHA's big, or two of OSHA's top 10 frequently most cited standards are related to hazard communication and right to know. And a lot of you are using Damarco Solutions for housing your safety data sheets, and their database is only as good as we make it. So make sure that as you're getting new materials and chemicals and substances, that you would send the safety data sheet to them so they can update their database. And also as a backup, if you've got safety data sheets that need to be replaced, if they still say MSDS and are not in the globally harmonized specified 16 section format, that you may need to check the manufacturer's website for an updated SDS. When I was at some of your sites, I saw that some of the safety data sheets were out of date, and learned that you got them from Damarco Solutions. So I want to make sure that you all know that checking with the manufacturer is another option to make sure you have the most up-to-date safety data sheet. Last year, a lot of the sites were working on stretching programs and other things to minimize and eliminate soft tissue injuries. So those strain and sprain of the back, shoulders, knees are usually the typical claims. And as you reduce your larger claims with more physical type of injuries, that now we're left with these strain, sprain injuries that are the most common cause of claims. So, and you don't have to answer this question in this forum, but just think about what are you doing to minimize the impact of these injuries and to minimize the injuries overall that are related to strain sprains. I have seen the loss runs for every site from last year, and this is pretty much the most common cause of claims. And it's not only your industry, but it's every industry I work with. So it's a problem that everyone's facing in every workplace. I know a lot of sites are using daily stretching or coaching people to stretch at intervals. So instead of just morning stretching to kick off the day, that you could coach the workers on some stretches that are helpful based on the types of postures they might be in, that they could do these stretches for a couple minutes a few times a day. If anyone needs resources on the stretching or wants to figure out some other ideas beyond stretching, I'm definitely open to helping you out with that this year, as I see that this type of claim, it's not going to go away. It's something that we've got to actively manage and work on prevention. Another frequent topic that came up was safety training and safety committees. And I don't know if any of you actually found the polling feature within this webinar, but if you're on it and you see how it works, I did put a couple questions in the poll, in the webinar, where you could answer those questions. So one of the questions is, well, it's a statement, a yes or no answer, is my site safety committee meets regularly. So just trying to get an idea, yes or no, are you on track with your safety committee? I'm also not related to safety and training really, but I'm asking you if you watched all of last year's webinars, whether they were on the archive or live, and there's a couple different answer choices there. And then the third polling question, if you're able to pull it up in the webinar, is a statement, I want to learn more about, and I've got options for spray and strain prevention, driver safety, effective safety committees, site inspection ideas, and then other, and I'd like you to please comment. So it only allows you to answer or give one answer to each statement, which might be a little limiting. So if you are able to view those poll questions, please do answer them. Otherwise, I'm always open to your feedback through email or phone call. You can reach me as well. Just a basic best practice idea for your safety training and committees is to keep it fresh. And I know a lot of times safety brings out the vintage PowerPoints and programs that people have, but there's so much that's new going on in safety and so many different ways to present the information. So if you're looking for that type of information and how to make the training or your safety committees fresh, I can help with that. And that's something I'm offering to all of you, that as I complete the site visits this year, that along with conducting the site inspection, that I can also help to facilitate training or actually conduct the training, whether in person or through a web format like this. And another basic best practice is to empower the safety committee. And what I mean by that is put them to work. So your safety committee, you should have various representatives there from labor, people that are doing the work. You should have safety, you should have management, and any other levels of personnel that are represented at your site should be involved in the committee. And the safety committee isn't just a meeting or a place where the committee members sit and listen and are talked to. I want you to approach it as a venue for two-way communication. So if there's anything I can do to help you out, I know the dynamics of everyone's sites, safety committees are so different and varied. So I'm interested in learning more about everyone's safety committees as we go forth with this year, and how I can help support those and help you keep them fresh and interesting and applicable to what's going on at your site. So again, service planning, thinking about your site visit. A lot of us, or a lot of you, we've already been in touch and have actually set up a date and time for my visit this year. So if we've got that set up, great. And I'm probably already bugging you about what else can we do besides inspection. I really want to go beyond just site inspection this year and help you out with your training at your site, being a part of your safety committee. If I can schedule the site visit for when your committee meets, that would be an awesome time to do a walk around inspection with the committee, and then come back together as a committee and discuss what we found and try to come up with some direction for the year, or whatever else you're working on. A lot of us, we talked about safety goals from last year and how I can help you with that. that's what I'm here for. So the question marks there are leaving it open to you based on what your site needs this year. All right, so again, our 2017 webinar series, future dates yet to be determined, and also future topics yet to be determined. Today I covered a few different topics. So if something caught your interest and you want to learn more, please do let me know, and I can dive into any safety topic more in depth in these webinars for the general group. So just give me that feedback and suggestions on the topics, and also on days of the week and times that seem to work better for everyone. As you know, I'm a consultant, so I don't have that workplace and office culture anymore. So for me, a Monday morning would be a great time to do one of these webinars, but it may not be the best for any of you. So please do let me know what works best, and we'll get these revived for the year. My goal is to do them quarterly, so I think we're still on track for completing 4 this year. So again, please give me that feedback. And here's my contact information. I think you all have it, but just as a refresher, abbyferry@gmail.com and 612-670-6793. If we haven't set up our site visit for the year, get in touch. I'll be going through the list again just to make sure I've got everyone covered, and we'll take it from there. So I'm looking forward to serving the group again this year, and looking forward to really helping you in achieving your safety goals for 2017. So with that, and I'm just going to check and see if there's any questions or comments inside the chat feature, which it looks like I just don't know how to use it. So that could be why. So I'll end the broadcast, and I will send out an email, or I guess you all have the link. So if you found value in this, please do forward it to other people at your facility. It's now public, so you're able to forward it to anybody, and they'll be able to view the session. So we'll be in touch, and thanks for participating today.